Hey guys, welcome to Dargonflyy Deck Tips, where we provide you with synergized decks that'll make you a threat at any commander table. Today, we'll be covering an in-depth look at Marisi, Breaker of the Coil. Marisi is a 5/4 cat warrior that emphasizes the importance of the goad mechanic. Goad forces your opponents into forced combat with each other while leaving you alone at the table. The average CMC of the deck is 3.26 and equally shares its colors amongst its cards. However, we're still going to be using some sorceries to speed up the ramp process for this deck. Cards like Farseek, Kodama's Reach, Skyshroud Claim, and 3 Fizzits are going to help us speed up that ramp. With the addition of mana rocks, we can ramp even faster, and with the signets in place, we can have optional damage just in case we don't have the colors that we need. There are many ways to build Marisi. Many decks focus on utilizing cards with the shadow keyword to bypass blockers. Instead of taking this route, we will instead approach this obstacle by utilizing stacks pieces that force opponents' creatures to enter the battlefield tapped. Cards like Authority of the Consuls, Imposing Sovereign, Kinjali Sunwing, and Thalia Heretic Cathar guarantee that even if an opponent can create a blocker, it will still need to enter the battlefield tapped. Leaving opponents open to our attacks is of the utmost importance to guarantee that everyone at the table is swinging all of their creatures into one another, while you get to sit back and just enjoy the chaos. Just to ensure that our creatures are difficult to block, we'll be using creatures like Bothersome Quasit, Champion of Landbolt, Iroas, Mary Weatherlight Duelist, Audric Master Tactician, and Sidar Kondo. Besides creatures, our deck is ultimately assisted by Bedlam. Bedlam is crucial to guaranteeing our creature's safe arrival at each target opponent. Artifacts like Dolmen's Gate and instances like Naya Charm negate damage or tap all creatures to get Marisi to trigger. Since Marisi makes us untouchable by instances during combat, now is a better time than ever to get anything done that you don't want immediately countered by your opponents.
Wait, what? You can't goad your opponent's creatures using Komenu Battle Armor on your Grinzo?
That's fine. Just cast Taunt from the Rampart or Disrupt Decorum. Goading with this deck can even be as easy as playing a land using Geode Rager. Maybe you want a little more flavor and want to offer an Olive Branch to your opponents. Cards like Agitator Ant do just this by sending out some 1/1 counters to goad those creatures they're put on. Taking advantage of this mechanic makes piloting Marisi all too easy. Makes sense while we're including some cards like Baloth and Kit Kanto to take advantage of collecting treasure tokens while your opponents fight it out. Maybe you need just a little peace of mind when piloting this fight amongst yourselves deck. You're going to need some protection. That's why we're including Lightning Greaves, Rhythm of the Wild, Saris Viper Fang, and Shalai Voice of Plenty to protect creatures before and after they hit the field. Remember, Marisi is a key part of this deck and you want him alive. Speaking of which, removal is one thing especially not forgotten in this deck. Maybe they're not a threat during combat, but they cause problems you weren't ready for. We're counting on this. Since there's a plethora of creatures coming into play on our side, we can take full advantage of Aura Shards for its artifact enchantment removal, or K-Grip, which avoids any counters with its split-second ability. Single target removal is also possible with cards like Tenuous Transformation, which also draws 2 cards, don't forget, Path to Exile, and Source Plowshares. Even if all hell breaks loose, throw out the Wrath of God to clean the board. For even better removal, try casting Fight to Death at instant speed or Sunblast Angel during your main phase to arrange the board entirely in your favor. But you want a deck that does some damage to your opponents, right? We didn't forget about you Gruul players out there, which is why I'm including 3 heavy hitters like Xenagos, Rurik Thar, and our biggest damage bringer, Vengeful Ancestor. Vengeful Ancestor is going to be distributing damage as if it was its main export, so be sure to give him the deserved protection he deserves. Additionally, we can also play Rite of the Raging Storm for a guaranteed 5 damage going anywhere but you. Ajani is here to give us some health and make our creatures bigger as we swing out the entire game without needing to tap our creatures. What would a deck be if we didn't add a little shenanigans to it? That's why I've included Assault Suit and Bloodthirsty Blade to equip their creatures and use ours to swing for them. Want to cheat out some creatures? Here's Doors of Durin doing exactly what we want our deck to do by sending our creatures out swinging. Maybe our opponent's creatures aren't big enough. Buff them a pinch with Gaiichi. Maybe they don't have enough creatures. Play Goblin Spymaster. Too many ETB triggers muddling up the game? Throw in Hushbringer. While they're busy throwing all these creatures at each other, you'll have enough time to get all your counters on Luminarch Ascension to add to the chaos. But how do we draw into these cards? Well, with our attack step, of course. Enter Offbrand, Frostfang, and Toski. Combat damage doesn't just go now, it draws us tons of cards. Especially if we cast Hunter's Insight on any creature striking a blow. That doesn't mean we aren't going to include the obvious Guardian Project or the free cast and card draw we get from Riskard's expertise. Even Lifecrafter's Beastgear is going to be putting in some work. Additionally, I try not to add too many of these, but tutors are not bad for whenever we're in a bind or we just want to get ahead of the game. That's why we have Enlightened Tutor to maybe help search for, Bedlam? And then Kellen is also there to help search for equipments that we can use to protect our creatures. Finally, we get to our Game Breakers / WinCon. Strixhaven Stadium's counters are going to be ticking up each combat step with little threat of opponents being able to attack us. And Beastmaster's Ascension, well, it speaks for itself. Feel free to keep swinging out and enjoy the ride. The deck has 34 lands total, utilizing 8 forests, 7 plains, and 7 mountains. Here are the 11 non-basic lands you should be sure to include. Up first is Access Tunnel, acting like a more specific version of Rogue's Passage, which is also in this deck. Then we have Arcane Lighthouse to remove Hexproof and Shroud from any unsavory creatures standing in the way. For mana fixing, we have Command Tower, Jedmir's Garden, Terramorphic Expanse, and Evolving Wilds. This deck also likes to take advantage of the hideaway mechanic for lands since they're so easy to achieve with this deck list. That's why we're including Spinerock Knoll and Windbrisk Heights for cheating out cards. Also included in the deck are Keswick Wolf Run and Gavany Township to buff our creatures. Lastly, for our lands, we include Minas Tirith for easily achievable card draw. If you'd like a full copy of the deck list, make sure you check out my Mox Field, which I'll link in the description below. Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching my video. This is my take on Marisi, the Coil Breaker. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.